Howdy! I am your host, Big Hempy. We have GGPuck with us tonight, and our guest is Demian Gover, and we will be discussing the game of life. Not the board game, the one that we actually play every single day.
Oh, and just so you know, I understand that sometimes the idea of suggesting that life is a game can be very offensive when you first hear that.
My personality type looks at life as a game. It's how we get through life.
Earlier I see that way now, but before, life is hard. Life has problems, and earlier in my life, I would have said, "How dare you? How dare you suggest that life is a game? This sucks." That's not the way I see things now.
See, I've always found The Sims The Sims is literally a life simulator, but thinking okay, so I have these invisible bars that I need to maintain to survive. I have this social bar I need to maintain. I got this, hygiene bar I got to maintain. You know what I mean? Just breaking it down that way kind of helps a little bit.
The food bar.
We're taught different ways of compartmentalizing things, and it's it's a very social and very cultural way we're taught, and for the most part, those things seem to apply throughout space and time.
Oh no!
The space-time continuum.
It got him.
Oh, did he? Did he poof off of the Discord again?
Yeah.
Demian will be right back. Let me message him.
He was talking about space-time, and then space-time crept up on him. Sucked him in.
It happens. And see, I went with this. Hey, Demian, are you back?
I am.
Okay. You started talking about space and time, and the space-time continuum snagged you up for a second.
I was just saying that for the most part, you can read things across space and time, and for the most part, people can identify with that. For the most part, there may be subtle differences,
right?
But people tend to want the same types of things. They value the same types of things, especially if left to their own devices. When things seem really, really weird, out of the ordinary, it's generally not. It's generally something pretty deeply cultural,
right?
Which, okay, if we're going to talk about the game of life, here's where we're just going to start offending everybody right out of the gate.
Well, that's the way to do it. Let's just start off with offending everyone.
So brace yourself. Everything culture teaches us is probably viciously unhealthy. It's probably not an accurate reflection of the nature of God. And I have a hard time imagining that culture ever will be. But
right.
Of course, if it was, well, that would be paradise, wouldn't it? So here's the thing, and this is the thing that I hope people, okay, now that everyone's offended because now everybody is violently defending their culture. Here's the thing: if you think heaven is possible, if you think paradise.
Oh, he dipped again.
Talked about paradise and he disappears. He's off to paradise.
See.
Despals, thank you for the subscription, buddy. Thank you so much. Despals, feel free to jump into the chat, and if you have a problem jumping in there, let me know. I'll grab you and stick you in. We are. You should have permissions to get into that channel.
See, talking about paradise and the games just makes me think of the religion from Silent Hill, because they were constantly trying to reach quote-unquote paradise. But,
well, I mean, if you look at it in any religion, though, Puck, everyone's trying to reach paradise. I mean,
Yeah, but
that's what it's all
their
about.
idea. The thing is, their idea of paradise is fucking horrifying.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, it's yeah. Let's see. And I know there's some storms coming through the area, so he might just be having trouble with cell phone connections and stuff. That literally could be his issue tonight.
Hello, welcome back.
I think I'm glitchy over here for some reason.
Are you getting the storms down there like we've been having come through up here?
Oh yeah. I was just so I'm
I
in
just
McKee,
mentioned
and
I just
I was
mentioned
in-
that. I said he's probably just losing connection because of the storms.
Yeah, that's likely. I'm in McKee, so I was that's where my wife and I and our kids live, and we were in London, Kentucky, earlier today. It's less than an hour's drive away, and yeah, it just dropped a bomb on us on our way home.
Oh wow. All right, so you was talking about paradise.
Can I bring up what I said while
Oh,
he
yeah.
was gone?
Oh yeah.
So
for sure.
I was talking about how because you were talking about paradise, and it reminded me how in the Silent Hill games universe, their religion is trying to find paradise, but their idea of paradise is like horrifying to like by standard definition.
Yeah,
So like
so that brings up a really interesting point. What's heaven like? What's paradise like?
Who was it that you just had me listen to? Was it Neil Goddard?
Neville Goddard.
Neville Goddard, yeah. Is he the same guy who wrote the Conversations with God?
No, that's Neil Donald Walsh.
Okay.
That's where you got the Neil from.
Okay. I was getting them confused. But yeah, this is about to go right into what that talked about with Neville.
Right. Yeah. I recommend Neil Donald Walsh. I recommend Neville Goddard. They both point toward the same things, but they speak very, very differently.
Ooh, hold on, I wasn't on the right channel. What was that? Thank you. Oh, hold on real quick. Thank you for the bits, latest gaming reviews. I gotta do those little stream things every once in a while. I'm sorry.
Demian, he's back again.
Did he poof and then come back again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back.
Like I said, it's probably the weather that's causing it because we didn't have this problem the last time.
If anyone's playing a drinking game at home, just take a sip every time Damian gets kicked out.
We don't want people passing out drunk, okay? And once again, Despals, if you want to jump into that voice channel, please.
He said earlier he was too sleepy.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, you can play the drinking game with Perrier if you prefer.
I'm going to be playing it with Earl Grey. Hot.
Lovely.
Okay, well, let's continue.
So you were talking about Neville's. Remind me, specifically, what were you thinking about?
Well, it's you got to talk about. You started to say, what does the kingdom of heaven look like to people? What does paradise? What does that? For different people, it's the Elysian fields, or depending on your culture and stuff, where you're from and stuff.
Yeah, something culturally predefined.
Right. Like the Norse have Valhalla, or the different, great houses of the different Norse gods. If you follow that lines, that's what they seek to go to for their heaven.
Right.
The way I was raised, I was told that heaven is basically whatever your idea of the perfect place would be.
See, that makes a lot more sense to me. That makes a lot more sense because, okay, let's get back to the theme of we're playing the game of life. So, again, who is alive and living life, and even if you've mastered it, even if you've figured stuff out, When did not life start out hard? I mean, it's hard. Life is hard. It's, like Thomas Hobbes said, life is brutal, brutish, nasty, and short, and full of problems. And so, to me, it seems heaven would be the immediate and obvious solution to all problems.
Well, yeah.
And so much so, the immediate and obvious. They're immediate and obvious in the sense that you don't even notice that there are problems because they're solved so immediately. So what are our problems with being human? Well, first of all, we risk exposure. We're, even if we're as tough as the, undomesticated natural animals. So we sit out in the cold, in the rain, in the sun, and if we just sat there, we would die of exposure pretty quickly. So we seek shelter. We seek shelter from the sun, we seek shelter from the cold, we seek shelter from the rain, and then we start to get hungry, so we need to eat. Even more immediate than the food and water is air. We need air,
right,
to breathe. We can do, what do they say? You can do without food for up to 4 months. You can do without water for up to 4 days, and you can do without air for up to 4 minutes. So we need certain things, and if we don't have those things in a healthy way, stuff starts to become a problem really quickly. If we don't have these bare minimum of things, stuff starts to hurt really quickly.
One of the things that's kind of awesome about being human is you can find your own solution for all of those problems.
And in many cases, now with the exception of, air,
yeah,
water, and
oh no.
Oh, this is going to be a fun night. I can already tell.
I was going to get into, because he was talking about shelter, and I was going to say how one of my teachers, when he was talking about, like, we think about, things we need, like shelter, food, water, blah, blah, blah. But
Right.
we rarely think of, like, clothes count as shelter.
Right.
It's
It's going to Maslow's hierarchy of our basic needs.
am I back?
Yes, you are back.
yes, hi.
The problem.
Drink up,
is
everybody.
Stress.
Yes.
And see, probably 15 or 20 years ago, things like this happened. That probably would have stressed me out. Now I really don't care. I just sit back and wait. And, But stress kills people.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh yeah, it does.
Literally kills people. It makes us so unhealthy. It depletes the immune system. It wreaks havoc on our cardiovascular system. It's the chemicals that are released because of stress are unhealthy all the way around. And so in the meantime, if we're going to play this game of life correctly, in the short term, we need coping skills.
There is a question in the chat.
It's from someone we know really well, Demian, especially you. It's Canthius. He asked, how does finding your own heaven tie into enlightenment? Is it becoming the solution to your problems?
Well, what is enlightenment? Again, we've talked about enlightenment before. Does it come in a flash? Is it something that unfolds over time? Yes, and yes. So enlightenment just means waking up to the truth, waking up to reality, which means, okay, get this, means breaking your previous reality.
Exactly.
Wink, 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 nudge, nudge.
Kind of the whole reason this show's here.
So here's the thing. We go around, we see a lot of this hashtag woke stuff, in the modern age because of social media. And yes, social media is a wonderful thing that it.
Oh.
And he goes again. Right when
Yep.
I was showing off my coffee mug from one of my favorite streamers, one of my good streamer friends is Drunk Rat. This is one of his mugs. It says world's greatest degenerate. It's got
It's a mug. It's a mug on a mug.
yes, it is.
Whoa.
And with Rhodey and Rhodey Jr. Oh, that tea's really hot. But
So, something he was saying reminded me of. I'm thinking of a lot of things teachers have said to me. But like, you know how the body like replaces cells like so many years. Like,
Every 9 years or so, everything is you're a different person.
yeah, it reminds that what you were saying was kind of reminding me of that. Like, you need to like do that to your like brain, like to your perception or whatever, to like.
Yes, perception is everything. And if things aren't working for you, if life is hard and the solutions to life's problems seem very difficult and very far away, you can point to all kinds of things about what other people around you are doing, the problems that other people around you are perpetuating, and well, they're making it harder for me. Well, yes, that is the appearance of it. But to awaken means to awaken to some things that are brutally offensive to your previous understanding.
well, it usually has to be something that shocks your system to get you to awaken.
Yes, and if you wake up to it, your system will be shocked. If you're not awakened to it when you hear it, you'll just be offended by it.
Right.
Is it
And
like? Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is it like when some people have like a psychic episode or whatever?
Well, when people have extrasensory experiences, they may be seeing a glimpse of something, and it's something that's usually out of the norm, maybe out of the norm of their experience, but certainly out of the norm of the sociocultural experience.
Well, and
So when you say it out loud, it's usually pretty uncomfortable for everyone.
well, and I think that's why you see a lot of people who are talking about being woke and coming to this enlightenment and stuff. You see that a lot around the psychedelic culture.
Yeah, and
Did we lose him again?
Yeah.
Right when we was getting into some really meaty, good stuff too. He'll be back.
But yeah, what I was trying to get into is because I've read, like he was saying, like, and so basically, it sounds like enlightenment can be a little bit painful.
Oh yeah, enlightenment can be extremely painful.
And I remember reading like people having like psychic they're becoming more psychic, and like it's a pain. Apparently, that's a painful process as well.
Well, yeah, because as you become enlightened and as you become woke up, your senses become more tuned to things that go beyond just your basic perception. And like what he was talking, it breaks your reality. And as you get those things, like where you see people that gain different abilities, like extra the ESP stuff along those lines, where they get into these extra special abilities and stuff. Those can be painful to come about and stuff like if I don't know if you've ever got into studying anything about Kundalini or the Kundalini energies and how the Kundalini awakening comes. But that can be an extremely painful process to go through.
Well, I was gonna say, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of like another form of birth, and isn't all birth a little painful?
Oh
We
yeah.
have scriptures that describe, in the Judeo-Christian traditions, Yeshua he's questioned by a member of the Sanhedrin, Nicodemus, and Yeshua tells him, I tell you, truthfully, unless you are born again, you can't enter the kingdom. And so, and this is very confusing to a very spiritually educated man like Nicodemus. What are you talking about? You have to go back up inside your mother's womb. I think we probably talked about this before. It's like it's one of those facepalm moments with Yeshua, Jesus, if you prefer. And he says, "Come on, you should know better. In order for you to move into a different state, you have to abandon your previous one."
Yeah, I think we lost him again. Oh no, he's there.
Oh, nope, I'm here.
Okay, you just got quiet. I thought you was going to continue on.
And this is why the mystics say you can't get there from here. You can't move into your preferred state by continually reminding yourself that you're not.
What? Wait, what are they? Are they from Maine? You can't get there from here.
Oh.
That's good. That's good.
Hello, Sarah.
And so what does that mean? What does that mean you can't get there from here? It means you have to abandon here. This is the problem. Everyone thinks that, oh, my problems will be solved if I just move, or if I break up with this person, or if I get a new job. The problem is, wherever you go, you tend to take yourself with you.
Right.
I
had a friend of mine tell me early on when I was dealing with some of my own personal traumas and stuff in my early 20s, and I was talking with them. They're like, "Oh, you just get out of the area that you're in where all those things happened, get somewhere fresh, get somewhere new, and start over." Well, in my 30s, I ended up doing that. And I hadn't healed from those traumas, so they followed me. They didn't.
Unfortunately, that's what happens.
They didn't stay where they occurred. They're part of me. They're part of my psyche. They're part of my being.
They're part of your subconscious.
Right.
And that never goes away.
And until I addressed those and worked with them, you can't run from them. I mean, it's like trying to say, "Hey, I've got depression or I've got anxiety, and if I get out of this town and I move to Hawaii and I live on the beach, it's all going to be okay and they're going to go away."
Yeah.
I think
at the same
doesn't.
time though, you do need to reset every once in a while. Like sometimes you do need to like just fuck off and go somewhere else and get a new like perspective from
a change of locale sometimes can give you the opportunity to breathe and to reassess. But the thing is, if you're not using that time to process, if you're not using that time to process grief and to process trauma in a healthy way, then just a change of scenery isn't going to change a thing. If you're doing some mental and emotional work, then, you got to get away from your stressors. You got to get away from your triggers, if only briefly. But the truth is, if you have truly processed your trauma, then you could go back in the presence of your triggers and be like, because they would no longer be triggers anymore. And a lot of people just can't imagine that. No, they're like, "No, I can't imagine this person not triggering me." And that, unfortunately, is why they always will. And again, with the "how dare you," because No, this isn't my responsibility. They're the ones who should apologize. I'm sorry, guys, they're not gonna. If you're waiting for someone else to make it right, you're gonna be waiting a long, long time.
See, I agree with Sarah in the chat how like sometimes just being in different places can help heal though, especially if it's like water or something.
Oh yeah, water is very healing. I mean, that's a known thing out there amongst a lot of circles. They talk about, you know, water can be very healing and stuff to the soul and everything. And I mean, you think about it, the majority of our body is water.
I know, right? Like, who
And
just thought?
and I think it was oh man, I might get this wrong. Oh, Demian, who was the guy who done the Secrets of Water? I'm pretty sure you've probably looked into that as well.
Well, that was Neville again. That was Neville Goddard. He was describing biblical symbolism. Every time in Judeo-Christian scriptures, when you see water described, almost every single time, they're really talking about infinite consciousness.
Well, no, I'm talking about there was a Japanese scientist that
Oh,
done
oh, yes. I want to say Miyamoto.
yeah, Miyamoto. And what he talked about was the way um he's got a book out there, and there's also a documentary, and it's called The Secrets of Water. And I will get some information on it and post it up in the Discord because it's after the show, because it's a really really interesting study he done. But what they done was they took water and they would project different feelings or thoughts or even speak different words to them, and the way that they spoke to the water changed the structure of the crystals in the water. It changed when they would freeze it, it would change the crystalline structure of it. So if you spoke love to it, you would see these really pretty snowflake patterns and stuff. But if you spoke hate and anger to it, it would be these really erratic, sharp, broken edges and just really, really obscure shapes and stuff. But when they spoke to it with love, with peace, with kindness, with understanding, they really brought it into you would see a lot of the what would be considered sacred geometry or fractals.
Also, I want to mention Keyntheist asked a question earlier.
Yes. Cantheus asked, how can you distinguish between that and a lack of compatibility or something that feels like friction between you and someone or something outside of yourself?
Well, everything is a mirror to you. So anything that you perceive outside of yourself is just reflecting something back to you that you have to process. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend time with them. As soon as you get the message, hang up the phone. um, it may be an opportunity to forgive something, and to be able to externalize it, and in forgiving someone else, it may help you process that within yourself. But everything that exists outside yourself is a mirror, and everything that causes you pain. Here, I'll put this in the first person. Maybe this will be more helpful. Everything that causes me pain and discomfort is part of my mind trying to wake up another part of my mind. And so you're like, okay, so there's different parts of your mind now, and they're functioning independently. They're not separate. Guys, it's all one mind that we're working with, but this one mind performs different functions. And part of it is playing the game of not knowing. Part of your mind is playing the game of not being aware. And that's what largely we would call the mind, the part of the mind that has the ability to have an ego, a sense of separation. And that part of the mind has a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And then another part of your mind is what we might call the higher mind.
Oh, he dipped.
He will be right back again. For those of you playing the game, for those of you playing the game at home, time to drink up. Latest gaming reviews. That is an excellent movie too. I absolutely love that movie. If you guys haven't got to see What the Bleep Do We Know, by all means, check it out. Uh, Me tonight, I am drinking Earl Grey tea hot. But we was joking because Demian keeps bouncing in and out of chat because of connection issues with weather and stuff. We was saying if you want to play a drinking game at home, by all means, every time he dips, go ahead and take a drink.
Or as we say on my stream, mana boost.
Yes, the mana boost.
Sorry about that, guys.
It's absolutely fine. We can't control the weather, you know. If we did, it would be nice well, for me it'd be, about 65, nice light breeze, sunny.
Now that brings us to another really good point. Okay, so if paradise is the immediate and obvious solution to problems, and understand, guys, yes, I know that some people believe culturally or theologically that paradise and heaven are different things. That's neither here nor there. That's another joke. You'll get it later. I'm sorry. That was awful. That was awful.
Oh man. All right, let's continue.
But here's the thing. If we could make it perfect by making decisions about what should and should not be perfect, we would have to have a lot of information. We would have to have a lot of knowledge, because every decision that we made that immediately made one situation perfect would probably make a bunch of other situations much, much worse. So when we're in this state of unawareness playing the game of being human, it's probably a really good idea that everything that we think is good doesn't immediately manifest. And this is why part of playing the game of life and playing the theological game of developing a relationship with a higher power.
Oh.
And there he goes. He'll be right back, though. I don't even have to message him at this point. He just realizes it. So just to let you guys know, I am going to have some other guests coming up soon. I'm going to be getting some other people to come on. Demian has agreed.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Hey, welcome back.
Sorry, I'm here.
Well, let's continue on what you was talking about, and I can go into what I was saying later.
Right. I was just saying that I don't have all the information in the world. So if I make a decision about something that should be fixed, for my part, if I could, I would drop water over all the fires in the world and just put them out, because I think that's, to me, that's a problem, and that's the way it should be fixed.
All right.
But the trouble is, if enough water dropped to put out all of those fires, imagine what it would flood. If I had the power to do that immediately, I might make things much, much worse. So instead of everybody burning up, I would drown them all.
And let me go on to say something along those lines, too. When you were talking about this, sometimes we need those fires. Sometimes those fires come in to do things. And the loss of life and destruction, and I'm not saying, the fires that burn people's homes down and kills people, and you see this loss of life. But as far as, like, the wildfires and stuff, some of those fires need to burn to clear out all that debris and all that brush and everything, so that life can spring forth from that.
We can't say that forest fires are a bad thing. Under good conditions, Forest Service sometimes set controlled fires intentionally for that very reason.
Right.
So it's not that fires are a bad thing, but man, when they get out of control, you're like, man, we could use some rain right now.
Right.
But if we had that much rain, imagine how much worse it might be with the floods. So all I'm saying is that as a human, I don't have enough information to fix those kinds of problems, even if I had the power to.
Right.
And that's a good thing. And so that's why I say that the path to having a relationship with God is not one of control, but of surrender.
Right, and it goes into I think some people also have a really obscure way of how they perceive God, and that goes into a lot of really goes into that Neville Goddard talk that I listened to, and I'll grab a link to that and post it up here in a little bit. Actually, Demian, if you can send me that link back over, I'm not sure what happened to it.
Sure, I'll find whichever one the last thing I shared with you.
But it got into the whole concept of what is I am, because in the Judeo-Christian teachings, when you see I am in the capital letters, capital I, capital A, capital M, I am, that is meaning God. I am. That is God when they're speaking in the Judeo-Christian text. Now, I read something really, really interesting. I belong to lots of different groups and stuff, and I belong to some different pagan groups and stuff. You guys know I'm not shy about some of my beliefs and stuff. You guys know I'm a pagan and I follow lots of different paths and stuff. And Demian knows this as well. We've had lots of conversations on this, and more so, what I really want to get into a conversation with Demian on this later is the path of the mystic, because that's really what we're all really, really seeking and following, if we really get down to it. But I read something briefly that was talking about whenever you say I am, the words that follow that immediately define what's going to happen to you and who you are. So if you say I am sick, you're going to be sick. If you say I am healthy, I'm going to be healthy. If you say I am sad, you're going to be sad, because you're making a statement. And when you say I am, it's spell casting.
And let's clarify this for the people who are listening. And they're like, I say stuff all the time, and it doesn't just happen. Well, what does it mean to say? First of all, a thought is just a thought until you dwell on it. And then as soon as you dwell on it, you're starting to convince your subconscious of it. And so that is what is really sending that signal out into the mirror of the universe that gets reflected back to you. It's all subconscious. So, when you say I'm healthy enough times, and you really believe that, and you convince yourself of that, there is no evidence in the external world that you can be surrounded by death and destruction, and in the core of your being that you're okay. But everyone else around you can be happy and healthy. But if you yourself feel unworthy and you say, no, I guess I've done something wrong, I deserve to be sick, or I'm scared of being sick, and you just repeat that, your subconscious becomes convinced of that.
Oh yeah. Hey, Demian, Dave's actually got a question, Cantheus.
Certainly.
He said, why does surrender often feel like suffering, misperception of death?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. Why doesn't surrender to God feel blissful? Who was it that told you that God was only supposed to bring pleasant things? Who?
Oh. Well, you got it. I'm going to step in while Demian's gone, and he'll be back here in just a second, though. Think about it. In order to surrender to a new way of being, to surrender to a new way of thinking, you have to die to that old way. If you continue to hold on to those old thoughts, to those old patterns, those old perceptions, you're not going to truly surrender over. You're going to stay locked into them. You got something you want to say, Puck?
No.
Okay, I heard you clearing your throat and stuff. I thought you might be wanting to speak in on this, but yeah, I mean it's one of those things that in order to surrender, you got to have a death of self in order to be reborn into something new. You can't be both at the same time. You can't be old and new at the same time. So something's got to die in there somewhere.
And people are way too upset about death sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, death is actually a part of our process. We need to accept death, and I'm actually, Mary Gooseman, I believe is her name. I'd have to look it up to be sure. She's a death doula. I have talked with her about having her come onto the show. I'll be having her come onto the show here in a few months. I'm getting ready to go through a surgery for an abdominal hernia, so I don't know exactly what my schedule is going to be looking like. And so I didn't want to schedule her to be on the show and then have to cancel. So, but we're going to be having her come on, and we'll be getting into a discussion about death and dying and the aspects of helping people pass over and what all that entails and stuff as well. So we're going to be breaching the subject of death on Breaking Reality because it's part of life. It's part of the cycle. And death is not the end. So many people have the misconception that when you die, you're done and that's it and it's over. But like we've been
That's
talking,
one of the why we have the fear of bodily death, right?
right?
What's going to happen next?
And I think I may have even said this to you, Demian, just recently. I think we might have been having this conversation. I was talking about the surgery coming up that I'm looking at having, and it got mentioned to me about oh, there's always the possibility of dying on the operation table, and I'm just like, yeah, if I die, I die. I'm not scared of it. I'm ready to face it. I from my experiences and from my work that I have done on my path, and working with different sacraments such as ayahuasca and some other stuff, I've come to a deep understanding of what death is. And I don't fear it.
There's no threat.
Absolutely
and I understand.
none.
See, it is our place to love people so much, to comfort them when they don't know that. And of course, you don't comfort them by saying, "Oh, that's no big thing. It's not the end. This is a life without end." Those things may be comforting at some point, but it's not our opening line. It's not the first thing we say when somebody loses somebody that's close to them. That's not the first thing we say when somebody says something like, "Oh, I just got diagnosed with something terminal, and I'm scared."
Right. It's because we get so attached to this physical realm, to this physical world, and the things that are here. We don't realize that death is just the next part of our journey. And when we really get down to it, we're not just these physical bodies that you touch. This is just a meat suit made up of stardust. What we truly are is energy. We're cosmic energy. And the one thing about energy is it can never cease to exist. It can only change forms. And we lost Demian again. I was really hoping...
We did.
I was really hoping Demian was in here to comment on that. What do you think about that, Buck?
I mean, oh wait, is he back?
I am. I'm listening.
Oh, hey.
So I just got done talking about how I don't know when you poofed out, Demian, but I was talking about how we're not just these physical bodies. This body's just a meat suit made up of stardust, right. and that what we truly are.
We've been stardust a lot longer than we've been human.
Right, and what we truly are is cosmic energy that is contained within this. That's what the soul is. The soul is energy. And when we die, that energy cannot cease to exist. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change forms.
And it will never be destroyed.
Right, energy
God
is eternal.
God does not destroy. God only creates. And what that really means is rearranging stuff.
Right.
So when we die, what's going to happen? We will be rearranged, and we probably won't recognize what we are and what we were previously.
Well, I think there comes a point in time where we may, And that's
It won't be in time. It won't be in time. But yes, what you're getting at, yeah.
but it's
you're
where
absolutely
it's
true.
where you get to the point
You're
of
absolutely right.
of what they consider the ascendant masters. It's when you hit that point, it is a point where you understand the death and the rebirth that constantly happens, of the changing of the energy, and the transmutation of the energy is really what it is.
Now, before we get superstitious about it, remind yourself this. Always, 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 the ascended master is you. The ascended master.
Oh no. He ascended.
Well, he is the ascendant master, so.
Oh man.
Yeah, these technical difficulties can get really difficult when you're trying to get into a really deep conversation along these lines. But, folks, I apologize for it, but these are the things that we do have to deal with. I mean, most of you guys in this channel right now are streamers, so you know how it goes. How many times do we go through a stream without having some kind of technical difficulty?
I mean, I've had to completely end streams because of technical difficulties, so, like...
And the Ascendant one is back.
Technology's great when it works.
Exactly.
The ascended master is always the self. Now we'll tell stories to ourselves about avatars of God. We'll tell stories to ourselves about other ascended masters, but these other stories and these characters are never, ever, ever outside ourselves. That's the difficult thing to understand, is that there is only one self, and that self is experiencing itself through... Well, it's experiencing itself through me.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go to the Judeo-Christian text, it talks that we were created in the image of God. So if we were created in the image of God, we were created to be exactly like God is.
And
so,
what is another word? What does it take to see an image of the self? What does it take to see an image of the self? What do you call that?
A vision?
It's a mirror.
A mirror? There you go. Yeah, a mirror.
In order to see an image of
I'm
yourself,
sitting there thinking
you do this
selfie.
every morning when you go to the bathroom. Every day, above the sink is a mirror, and we think that okay, this is what a mirror is. It's this piece of glass that works on the laws of physics, of color and distance and reflection and...
Oh.
The mirror sucked him in.
I mean, they do say in some cultures that the mirror is the doorway for the spirits. That's why in some cultures you have to cover mirrors during certain times of the year and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times they cover them at times of death and stuff too.
Mm.
There's a lot of different cultures and stuff out there that deal with different things around mirrors, but
how
is
disconcerting how disconcerting mirrors can be.
Oh,
What
yeah.
if we looked at the material world as nothing other than a mathematically perfect mirror reflecting my limited mind back to me?
I mean,
Most
isn't that
of the
exactly
subconscious-
what it is?
That's exactly what it is. And the more you practice looking at the material world that way, the more you practice looking at people and the environment as that. See, we just thought that we're trying to figure out our place in it, as if we didn't already belong. We belong. We're supposed to be here.
Right.
And all of pleasure and all of pain are being reflected back to us, what we're projecting. And unfortunately, most of what's being reflected back to us is our current level of fears. Not even the object of our fears. And of course, then we say, well, if God knows everything, right? God already knows that. Why would God need to play this game of not pretending not to know what he is so that he can see things through our eyes? What what sense does that make? I don't know. We use the word ineffable when there are things about the mind of God that we don't know. But I believe that we can know the mind of God, and that it is pure and perfect and mathematical, and
Well,
it loves 100% of its creation.
well, isn't that the whole point of seeking that aspect of being the ascendant master? Is at that point of that levels where you come to that understanding of knowing the mind of God.
Here's a question for the believers. The believers out there, the ones who are looking forward to heaven. What do you think God wants you to disapprove of that's going to guarantee you your path into heaven? Who do you have to hate?
Oh, at least in my opinion, if you're hating, you're not going to get to heaven.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way, folks. You cannot disapprove your way into heaven. And all of our scriptures tell us that. Do not judge others, or you will be judged by the exact same standard. Now, when it says the same standard is what you will be judged by, again, to me, that sounds mathematical. That doesn't sound arbitrary at all. That sounds like a mathematical reflection, like a mirror.
Right. And when we get into it, when you dive into the Judeo-Christian scriptures, and I know we're really sticking a lot on those, and it's mainly because at least for me, that's a lot of the spiritual text that I know.
And that's what we're surrounded by mostly.
At least where we're at, like someone like Des Paul's with where he lives in Dubai and stuff. He's surrounded by a different culture with different scriptures and different texts and different, there's a lot of similar teachings in all of them, though. If you really dive into a lot of these, the very spiritual manuscripts, there's things that cross over in all of them. But
I was gonna say, I think people are missing out if you don't read as many of those things as possible.
Oh yeah, I think trying to take in as much of that is part of a spiritual growth. But
it takes some time.
Going back into the Judeo
culture,
going back into the Judeo-Christian scriptures and stuff about what you were saying about who should you hate, Jesus gave 2 commandments, and he said these are new commandments. These are commandments that you're to live under now. The old commandments are not what binds you. And the 2 commandments was to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as thyself.
To treat your neighbor as yourself. Yeah.
No. So he didn't say, treat everyone but, this kind of neighbor or that kind of neighbor.
But the violent ones.
Yeah.
What about the violent ones? What about the horrific ones? What about the sociopaths and the psychopaths?
Still to love them.
What about the mass murderers? What about all the rapists? And what about this?
I mean,
you don't have to agree with them.
Right.
Guys, you don't have to condone them. But your hatred of them and your self-righteousness is not going to get you anything other than more to fight against.
You can hate the acts that they perform. You can hate the pain and the suffering that is done, because I believe that there is a righteous time for hate and there's a righteous time for wrath, and that those feelings and those emotions have a place. But
absolutely,
they need to be put into.
What should they motivate you to do? What do you do?
Well, I mean, when someone does something that stirs hate, it motivates you to try to change that, to take action.
And I think, and maybe it's just because of my line of work, but I think you can be there for those who are suffering. Because anything that has happened that has caused pain, there are people.
Oops.
And he'll be right back, and we'll continue on that point in just a minute. Yeah, Cantheus, there is a big part about seeing yourself in those that you hate too, because when you see them, sometimes those people are a reflection of your own self, and things about yourself that you see in others that you hate are the things that are in you that you hate about yourself. And instead of hating on yourself, you're hating on someone else for those behaviors and those actions. We sometimes see the worst part of ourselves in others, and that's what we hate in others without realizing that that's part of us as well.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been listening to you, Demian. I might have learned a thing or two from you along the way.
And doesn't it hurt, when we suspect that about ourselves, when we finally look at the worst of the worst and we say, if not for the grace of God, there go I.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, my phone's going nuts. It's plugged in. Just unplug it. Um, it's like getting into the aspect. Like, I'm just going to touch on this real quick. Like, there's a lot of times where you get people that are really homophobic, and they have a real hatred of homophobia or homosexuality and stuff. But a lot of times, those people are dealing with an aspect of that within themselves that they don't quite understand and they can't accept, and they see it in others, so they hate it.
And anger and violence are often culturally acceptable ways of dealing with things that an individual isn't really able to process on a mature emotional level.
Oh yeah, it's the lashing out, it's the temper tantrum.
And everything scriptural in any religion has two levels of law.
Oh,
He's still here. Oh nope, there he went. We're gonna wait till he comes back to touch on what those laws are, because he's about to touch on something that I'm really interested in hearing what he's gonna say. And guys, anyone in the chat that's got any questions or any comments or anything, feel free to throw them up there. And so, how do you love something you hate when you've been hating something you? Oh man, dude, that's a deep question. And
so sounds like my experience with Overwatch.
I finally had to just uninstall Overwatch. I realized it made me way too toxic when I played it.
So how do you hate the seemingly... How do you hate what is a creation of God? And how do you love what is unlovable?
Well, hold on right there, because Dave just asked a question that goes right along those lines. He said, so how do you love something you hate when you've been hating something you love?
We all start out life viciously confused. We don't understand what we are. We don't understand where we came from. We feel separate. And the ego that makes us feel separate makes us feel like everything is a threat. What if you knew beyond knowing that nothing is a threat? What if you just knew that everything was okay? Well, if you've experienced a lot of suffering and pain, that would be a relief, right? Well, what if you experienced everything being okay for a long, long time, so long that you forgot what suffering felt like?
Then you wouldn't be able to enjoy the aspects of life. I mean, it's...
And so what would you do? What would you do? And I understand this sounds like just some, theological thought experiment, but seriously, folks, what would you do if you experienced pleasure and bliss, or even just relative comfort so long that you forgot what pain was? What would you do?
You'd become numb. That would just become your norm. You wouldn't feel the joy and the ecstasy that comes with that.
It sounds meaningless, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that we've talked about, that it's really when you've experienced the depths of despair is when you can really enjoy the heights of joy and bliss. And without experiencing those low points, you can't really appreciate those high points. And Demian's gone again.
Yep. So has anyone actually been playing the drinking game, I wonder?
I hope not. I hope not, because we might need to call a doctor. I mean, I know if I was drinking tea every time he disappeared, I'd have to be taking a bathroom break right now. And Demian's back.
How would you recognize what holiness was if you didn't think you had experienced true evil?
That's true. And I think you poofed out on this when I was saying it, but I was saying without feeling those extreme lows, that depth of despair, you can't enjoy the heights of joy and bliss and ecstasy. It's without the lows, you can't really appreciate those highs.
How would you recognize what fun was or what goodness was if you hadn't experienced fear and anger and sadness?
Right.
If you hadn't experienced jealousy and suspicion and all of those things, what would the meaning of being relieved of those things even be? How would you know?
Right. It's like without having experienced hate, how can you understand love? Without experiencing sadness, how can you understand happiness? Without experiencing one opposite, how can you understand the other?
Let's put it this way. What would playing games be like if just every time you were dealt a hand, it was always a royal flush? Right. It was always a full house.
It wouldn't be fun. It would just be... I mean, you come to expect it every single time, every moment. That's... Nothing ever changes. Nothing...
It'd be fun the first day.
Yeah.
And it'd get old real fast.
But at the same time, if everyone's getting a royal flush, then everyone's winners, and there's no losers, and so if that's what everything is, how can you truly understand what it is to get that winning hand in the game?
And here's this is the message for the people who are stuck in their hopelessness, because there are some people right now who are feeling, I've never had a royal flush. I've never had a pair.
Right.
You know, my hand always sucks. And to those people, I just say, hold on. Just hold on. Now, you will have different experiences, and maybe in a given lifetime, you'll see things so clearly that you'll want to discipline yourself to create a life intentionally. But if you haven't experienced that yet, unfortunately, you don't have any perspective to, you know, and this is where I have to look back on the younger version of myself.
And we lost him when he's talking about the younger version of himself.
Maybe the younger version of himself snuck up behind him and murdered him.
Nah. I think the younger version of himself's probably going, what the hell's he about to say? I cheated tonight. I used my French press to just make a massive amount of tea.
Tasty.
Yes, yes.
Glenn just brought me my dinner, so I am going to be slightly distracted while I eat food.
Ooh.
Why is it that the ones who are the most lost in the forest are the ones saying loudest, "Follow me, I know the way"? And they're the ones who are talking about how they're the ones complaining the loudest.
Right.
Yeah, I understand why you hurt, and I know who we were supposed to be mad at. So follow me, and I'll take you to the hate rally, and we're gonna hate all the same people together, and that's gonna make us feel better.
And
as long as we're angry.
This is a really important lesson for what we have going on our in our society right now too, with everything that's going on with just everything as far as the protest and the rallies and everything that you're seeing going on with the riots and everything, and just the hate and everything that's out there. It's there's people on both sides who just feel justified to just hate the other side so much, and they want to rage and rage and rage against the other side, but they don't want to sit down and talk and try to have conversations and try to build dialogue, which is what we need. And I'm going to cross over into the line of being just a tad bit political at this point in time. We really need a leader in this country that can step forward and fill this gap, that can start to bring people together to the table to sit down and have this discussion. That's what we need. That's what this country needs. Is it needs a healer, and not someone who's going to say, well, this is what I think we're going to do.
Man, how difficult it is to get someone who is convicted in their point of view to even entertain the possibility that, and this is why, and this is something that I very much had to humble myself about, because I had to accept that 100% of everything that I thought I knew was wrong.
Yeah.
But while I was doing that, at the same time, that didn't necessarily mean that anybody else was right. I mean, there are some people who had things figured out, and I wanted to find those people.
Right.
I wanted to listen to them. Eventually, I found some of them, and I listened to them. I did what they said to do, and it changed my life. But I had to allow myself to break. I had to allow my own ego to dissolve.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times you'll hear us speak about things like ego death, and that's what ego death really is taking these old preconceived notions that we've had of how we approach life and how we deal with things in life and everything, and allowing those to die off or dissolve, and to humble ourselves into saying, you know what, I really don't have the answers. I really don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm seeking truth, and one way or another I'm going to find it, but in order to find it, I gotta let go of these past things that I convinced myself were, hardcore truths. Like, I started down my path of spiritual seeking in my teens. I grew up in a really, really strict Christian home, full gospel, non-denominational, just Southwest Ohio, Bible Belt, Bible thumping, church 3 times a week, if not more. And by God, if you didn't follow exactly what the Bible said, you was a sinner and you're going to hell. And I knew that wasn't the truth.
No, those were cultural norms.
Yeah, I knew
those were man-made rules.
Right. That was what I would refer to as religion. To me, religion is man-made. Spirituality is actually a connection with the divine. And I think people misinterpret the two so much. Like, today I was even talking with my mom some today, and she brought up some of my beliefs and stuff, and she was calling it spiritualism, and I said, yeah, I'm an extremely spiritual person. I'm deeply spiritual. I said, but I'm not religious at all.
Ask Yeshua what religion he belonged to.
He didn't belong to a religion. Yeshua was not a Christian. Funny thing, guys, little secret, Jesus wasn't a Christian.
How? And he didn't teach out of the King James version.
No, he didn't. Definitely didn't teach out of the King James.
But here's the thing. That's not a problem, because reading out of any scripture, we're meant to read them symbolically.
Right.
As long as we look for the symbols, the exact translations don't really mean anything. Because
Right.
we should not be looking for social order in biblical scripture. We should be looking for a relationship with the divine.
Right.
And that's what they reveal symbolically.
Yeah, and I actually had a deep experience with something along the lines that really showed me a lot of that during one of my ceremonies, during one of my sessions, and I shared it with you, Demian, a while back, and I'll take the time to share it here if you don't mind. Remember when I talked about seeing my soul?
Yeah.
I had a session on ayahuasca, a ceremony where I was taken to the source of creation, which is the source is my words that I use to define God, because I don't like using cultural words. Like Christians use God, Muslims use Allah. Different cultures have many different names. There's different names for gods in every culture around the world. For me, I just refer to it as the source, because to me the source is the source of all creation, and creation is love. And that's what the source is to me. That's what God is to me. It is the creator. And I was taken and shown the formation of my soul, and my soul being forged. And I was able to, it was pointed out to me to look really, really close to these cosmic threads that were being woven and strewed together. And written into each one of them was the ancient text and knowledge, the spiritual text and knowledge of every belief, because they all intertwine together. And they're all tied in together. And it's where in that, and seeing that is part of me, and I am part of that, and how it is all created together, really, really brought a deep, deep understanding to me of how I look at all these ancient texts, these spiritual teachings and stuff. You look at the. I know I'm going to get some of these pronunciations and stuff wrong, but like the Bible and the Quran and what is it, the Bhagavad Gita?
The Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, and these different
the
texts.
Song of God.
Right. And you look at even some of the books that didn't get canonized in the Bible and stuff. When you start looking at these books, like the books of Epoch and the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha and these teachings
Enoch.
and stuff,
Yeah.
or the Book of Enoch. Yeah, that's it. God. My mind's all over the place.
And the Book of Thomas.
Yes. And all these teachings and stuff.
Gospel of Thomas. Excuse me.
When we look at these things, these are all, like you said, we got to look at them symbolically, but these are all things that are teaching us stuff that is built into the very core of our being. And when you read these and when they hit you, you get that kind of shudder down the spine. You get that chill, and that's you've told me this before, Demian. That's when you're coming to a realization of not gaining new knowledge, but remembering ancient knowledge that's come back to you.
It was what your soul already knew.
Right.
And you were playing the game of not knowing.
Right. It was
And
already
it's-
written into your soul. It was the very core being and essence of it.
You're practically quoting scripture right now. It's written on your heart. The word word of God is written on your heart. And we even have scriptures that say the Savior doesn't come to minister to those who are already healthy and whole. The sick need a physician, not the healthy.
Right.
I mean, Jesus is literally saying there are already people in other places already doing this. Even the Apostle Paul said of the Gentiles, of the unbelievers, he said those who are already doing good works in accordance with the law of God, they don't need a written law. They're a law unto themselves. So in other words, the Apostle Paul is saying those who are already living in accordance with the law of God, they don't need religion. So don't bother them. Don't try to convert people and say, well, you're living a good life. You guys seem pretty healthy, but y'all need to know Jesus.
Right. Which I get that so much from my mother, because she just doesn't understand, because she looks at these biblical teachings in a very literal way, and she thinks that because I don't conform to just those teachings, that I look to teachings outside of the Bible as well, that I'm messing with dangerous spirits, and I'm messing with dangerous realms, and I'm getting into a lot of what she calls spiritualism, which I call spirituality. And in honesty, what she's doing is, there you are. and in honesty, what she's doing by saying that, I'm messing with spiritualism and stuff instead of staying in the Bible, she's trying to lock me into the laws of man, of religion, of theology, and of doctrine.
Which is arguably a pretty severe misinterpretation of biblical scripture.
Right.
What preacher or priest are you going to trust if all they're doing is towing a cultural line?
Right. And that's
show me your cultural rules, and then show me the biblical
and that's what
interpretation of that.
And that's what draws these lines of hate between different cultural religions, where, like we said, we was talking a little bit earlier before the show, we was talking about, Christians hate Muslims, and you get into that extreme fundamentalist aspects of it and stuff, and Christians against the pagans against the Christians, people not understanding what Hinduism is and stuff.
And let's just take a big deep breath and remind ourselves there is nothing fundamental about fundamentalism.
Exactly.
Fundamentalism is radicalism, and it's not scriptural.
No, not at all.
Because I've had Jews tell me, it's really weird when they hear about, our interpretations of their Torah, because they say it doesn't say that men shouldn't lie with men. It says men shouldn't lie with boys. This is not an admonition against homosexuality.
Right.
This is an admonition against pedophilia.
Right. I mean, when Jesus said love your neighbor as yourself, he didn't say love your neighbor, except for the gay one, as yourself. He didn't admonish it. He didn't say there was anything wrong with it. He didn't say, hey, love everyone but your pagan neighbor, or your Muslim neighbor, or your
he said,
or your Jewish neighbor.
He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone.
It's even weirder to me when religious people try and bring up gender identity as a religious issue when it has nothing to do with...
Jesus says in the kingdom of heaven there is no man, no woman, no slave, no free, no Greek, no Jew. There are no cultural or biological divisions in heaven.
Right.
So if we are to take...
Man, I was really interested in what he was about to say.
He'll come back. He'll come back with it. He's usually pretty good about keeping his train of thought.
Oh man. Well, my chicken I'm eating is really tasty, by the way.
What is it? Your chicken?
Chicken. Yep.
I love me some good chicken. But yeah, like today with mom, we was having a discussion, and she was getting on me about my use of psychedelics and my spiritual path and stuff. And I told her, I said, she's saying, well, it's evil and it's not in the Bible and stuff. And I'm like, tell me in the Bible where it says thou shalt not use psychedelics.
I think I can, pretty clearly say on the top of Mount Horeb, we really don't know exactly what Moses was smoking up there, but
there was definitely a burning bush.
We have every reason to suspect that it was probably acacia.
Yeah, and
acacia was the Egyptian tree of life, and it was all over the frickin' place.
Now, Puck really wanted to know what you was saying on your last train of thought before you came back to that.
Sorry.
You were commenting about, because I brought up about gender identity, and you were...
Right. Yeshua says in heaven there is no man, no woman, no free, no slave, no Greek, no Jew. None of those cultural divisions exist in Scripture. Not in Jesus' theology. Not in heaven. Not in God's law.
Right.
So why do we slavishly hold to cultural traditions that are both anti-biblical and not loving? Why do we do that?
It's because it's taught from the pulpit in so many of these cultures. And it's not just the Judeo-Christian culture. There's several cultures all around the world that teaches hate against one group or another. Usually, you find very few religions that are really accepting of things along the lines of homosexuality or, the gender fluid, gender identity and stuff. There's very few beliefs that are really open for those.
And there are women leaders in the Bible. And why are there so many cultural traditions that say that only men are supposed to hold positions of authority?
I mean, in the Old Testament,
why?
In the Old Testament, I can think of Ruth and Esther. Were both really strong female leaders within their times and where they were. And then if you want to get
Paul,
in. I was going to say,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, if you want to jump into the New Testament, she's not shown within it like she should be. And I believe it was because of the patriarchy of the Catholic Church when they canonized the Bible. But Mary Magdalene was really a big female leader within.
When Jesus rose from the grave, who did he show himself to first?
It was Mary Magdalene who saw him first. He saw Mary. It was Mary Magdalene and then his mother.
And then his mother. He showed himself first to two women.
Not to men. He didn't go to Peter. He didn't go to Paul. He didn't go to any of the apostles. He showed himself first to both of the Marys, Mary Magdalene and Canthea says it was because of her that Isaac was given. Oh, the truth of Sarah. He's talking about the truth of Sarah, yeah, and because of Sarah that Isaac was given. Yeah, that's getting into some Old Testament stuff there too. We've lost Demian again. He'll be right back.
Yep.
I'll bring that up when he gets back in here, Dave, so he can make a comment in on those. I'm really enjoying where this conversation's going tonight, too.
The Apostle Paul recommends women leaders to the churches in Greece, the new early Christian churches in Greece. And he does this, he sends them letters because he knows that when they get there, the men ain't having it.
Right.
because of cultural traditions. And why? And so okay, take a deep breath. We're going even deeper down the rabbit hole. Why do men in Christianity in the Western world, why are they so against women holding positions of authority? Why? There's one reason, and pretty much one reason only, and that's Aristotle. Because Aristotle was deeply sexist.
Oh, man.
Aristotle treated women as practically lower than beasts. Aristotle treated women as lower than animals. And that really goes back to an earlier Greek tradition of a misunderstanding of science. It's one of the reasons I love science, is because science dispels superstition. Now, science is a wretched way of understanding, but it's a lovely way of knowing.
Right.
And the ancient Greeks believed that, okay, well, maybe this is what happened. All the sperm of life is really in a man's head, and that all of that of the next person. So, never mind that a kid comes out and looks just like mom. Never
Right.
mind that. But the Greeks thought that was all on the man, and that the woman was just the vessel to deliver, basically planting a seed in dirt. And so if you think of women like dirt, you're probably going to treat them like dirt.
Hey, Demian, real quick. Dave brought up when we was talking about women leaders in the Bible, he brought up the truth of Sarah, and he said it was because of her that Isaac was given.
Yes. Because and Sarah was renamed because Sarah means princess, a young girl. And there's a couple of things going on there. First of all, she was important, first of all. And second of all, the message going on there is, she was an old woman.
So.
There he goes again.
Yeah. When he was talking about sperm or whatever, it made me think of, in some, I think, Native American cultures, they believed that the essence of different men that they slept with would create the child. So, like, if you had sex with one person and he had, like, a great personality, the kid would get that person's personality. You had sex with someone else and, the kid would get their looks or whatever, like, some blah, 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 which is not how it actually works. But
Right.
wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if that's how it worked?
It would be very interesting if that's actually how it worked. Did you hear? Did you catch any of that, Demi?
Okay, no, I missed something.
Do you want to go back into it, Puck?
Okay, you were talking about sperm and stuff earlier, and
Right.
it made me think of, in some Native American cultures, they believe that you got different aspects from different men that you slept with. So, like, if you had sex with one man, like, the kid would get, their sense of humor or something. And you had sex with another man, it would get their looks or whatever. That it was, like, a combination of...
Right.
Which is not how it works.
It's
but wouldn't
not.
it be really cool if that's how it worked?
Well, there's actually some... There are some things actually going on that are similar to that. It's not sperm, it's not carried biologically, it's carried energetically. And so when people have sex with each other, they're passing back and forth energy.
The sacred energy exchange of sex.
So if you don't have first of all, if you don't have a very firm handle on yourself, if you don't have an enormous amount of self-respect and a very firm identity in yourself, you're going to be very open to influence of other people's energy. And man, when are you more vulnerable than when you're having sex? And if you're
sex in itself is an energy exchange. You are interlocking and exchanging energies from one person to the other back and forth. That's
Exactly.
what
So
it is.
what energy are you exchanging? Are you exchanging creativity? Are you exchanging optimism? Are you exchanging forward thinking? What are you exchanging? Because if what you're exchanging is, well, I'm so messed up and I'm so hopeless, it would just make me feel a lot better to get my rocks off. What are you passing on? And if you're the other person, what are you receiving?
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about when you get ready to go into ceremony, you abstain from that to keep from
Right.
bringing those energies into you and carrying them into ceremony when you go into ceremony.
Yeah, and that's a very difficult thing to explain to people, especially Westerners.
Yeah, when you get into, like, honestly, like, when you get into people that understand, like, the chakras and the kundalini energies, they understand that fully. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a big aspect about, and I was actually just talking to a friend of mine about it, about the intertwining of the kundalini energies and stuff of a man and a woman when they join together. It's very symbolic of the way that you see the Kadama staff with the chakras and the twin snakes. One snake is the male, one snake is the female, and they intertwine up through the chakras. And there's a whole process that gets into talking about kundalini energies during sexual intercourse and how to have one of the most cosmically just blissful orgasms is when you rise those energies together as one unit of the male and female together, and you hold and you rise those energies up until the point of climax, and you release them through the crown chakra out into the cosmos. And it's I have yet
anyone who practices tantra accurately
right
already understands this.
Right, tantra is a big process of doing this, and it's because of the way that you hold those energies and you pull them in, and you pull that energy up through each chakra, and you're opening them up and you're flowing that through until you hit the crown, and then at the peak of the crown, you release it into the cosmos. You release that energy, which is a cosmic energy, out back into the cosmos itself from where it came.
Now, you can't bring up male and female energy exchange without me having to remind everyone that this alchemical wedding of the male and female is taking place in the mind of each individual, male or female.
Right,
it's
and
taking
at the
place
same
in the mind of every individual.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and at the same time, we got to remind everyone, you have both male and female energies within you. You both have the masculine and the feminine. These are the yin and yang that are in each and every single person.
And how that is expressed is through the conscious and the subconscious mind.
Right. It doesn't matter what your genitalia are. It doesn't matter what the plumbing is down there. Those energies are cosmic energies that are within everyone.
And not just the feminine aspects within the male and the masculine aspects within females, not just that, but your lower ego-driven mind has two parts, a conscious and a subconscious part. And of course, we didn't have these clinical terms in thousands of years ago.
Right.
We just called it the male mind and the female mind, and we called it the alchemical wedding or the alchemical marriage. And so what is going on 100% of the time is that you are subconsciously giving birth to ideas that are manifesting in your life. And we call this the female mind because it gives birth.
Right.
But the female mind, alchemically, metaphysically only, we're not talking about humans, we're not talking about people. The female mind doesn't have the ability to make choices. So the part of the mind that does have the ability to accept and reject ideas, we call that the male mind. We give him a job. His job is to make decisions, and his job is to impregnate the female mind with a new choice. preferably something healthier than whatever bad habits we've been expressing subconsciously up till now.
Right. And once again, we want to express this is not male and female as far as
Doesn't
humans.
have anything to do with people at
Right.
all.
It
this
is
is what's going
it
on in the
is
mind.
it is the energies that are contained within each and every one of us, no matter your gender identity. The male and female aspects are within all of us, and honestly, if we really want to get into it, I think this is why we see, like, we're seeing a great awakening among a lot of people, and I think this is why we're seeing so many people that are adhering to a gender fluid identity these days, is because they're learning how to flow back and forth from that male energy and that female energy, and sometimes one is stronger than the other, and so that's where they're getting this flow of one to another.
Expressing that culturally can be really confusing
Right.
sometimes. But when you explore your own mind on a spiritual level, you let go of cultural ways of doing things, cultural identities that don't serve a godly purpose.
I'd like to hear Puck
Well,
chime in on this.
I was just gonna say, well, and also, I mean, in some cultures, in some religions or whatever, people who are like genderqueer or don't identify strictly as male or female are usually held to a higher esteem because like they're closer to quote unquote like God in some way or whatever.
And why is
Right.
that?
Like in the Native
they're-
American culture of what they consider the twin spirits. Of the people that possess both the male and the female, they're considered extremely sacred within the Native American cultures.
Because they're not as limited as people who define their identity more narrowly.
And I agree. It's really opening up in like. Culturally in society in our world today, we're in a patriarchy, and
Have been for a while.
right. And
look at where it's got us.
And I get I really get deeply into studying the divine feminine, and I'm not afraid to say I dive into a lot of more along the lines of what would be considered goddess worship and the such, and the divine role of the goddess in the sacred aspects of everything. But when you look at it, the patriarchy brings us war. It brings us law. It brings us these very rigid things. The matriarchy brings us religion, it brings us love, it brings us the nurturing, it brings us that aspect, that kind of softer side to things.
And patriarchy brings us conflict, competition.
Yeah, I've got a book that I'll pull some quotes out of, and I'll put up on the Discord, guys, if you want to. There's a section on the Discord that right there's the link to join the Discord if you guys would like to. If you're not already over there, feel free to click that link and join me over on Discord. But I've got a section on there for breaking reality, and I've actually got a book I'm reading, and I suggest for anyone to pick it up. It's called The Sacred Prostitute, and it talks about the divine feminine aspects, and it's written by a lady who is she's a Jungian analyst from Carl Jung. Or Carl Jung, however you want to pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced many different ways. Demian, how do you pronounce it?
I would think that he would have pronounced it Young.
Young. Yeah. So she's a Jungian analyst, and honestly, I really sexual healing. Oh man. It gets into a lot of the sexual healing and stuff. It goes back into talking about in the ancient temples, they actually had what was considered sacred prostitutes, and they were considered very, very high up in the temples of antiquity. They were honored because they were these feminine. They were women And what they were able to do is for both males and females, they would bring them in and they would open up these sexual energies that they had. And where we was talking about earlier with that that energy exchange with sex, they were able to tap into that. They knew how to use that and harness their own sexual energies to help heal people. And it was healing not only on a mental and a physical, but also on a spiritual level. People forget about the spiritual aspect of sex. It's a very sacred and a very divine thing that you get into, and they.
Well, there's a reason we shout, "Oh God, oh God, oh God."
Orgasm is close to divine ecstasy. It's one of the closest things we have in our daily human lives.
That was great, Buck.
It's true.
It is.
It's true. Of course, I know there's a lot of people out there saying, "What do you mean daily?" Forget I said that. Did I cut out before I was describing the book that I was talking about? The book's called "Why Not Women."
Yeah, I didn't hear you say that.
Sorry. Cut out. I was saying another literature suggestion that I have is a book called "Why Not Women." It's co-authored. I don't have the names in front of me right now. It's co-authored by 3 people, one of which is a woman, and it goes into quite a bit of detail about socially, culturally, historically, and biblically. There are a lot of women leaders in the Bible, and there is nothing in the Bible that suggests that women shouldn't be in church leadership, in spiritual leadership. Quite the contrary.
Hey, can I just ask you a favor, Demian? When you get a chance, can you jump into the Discord, into the general discussion area? It's a text area, and put the information about that book in there, so anyone that's interested can access that information and look it up.
Yeah, you'll have to. I'm on my cell phone right now.
I'll message you later.
Sure.
We'll talk later, and you can get Discord on your computer and stuff. You can hit it from your laptop and get on there and type and stuff too.
Sure. I'd be happy to, but. Now this book, "Why Not Women," I don't agree with everything in it. Shocker.
Well, I mean, come on.
Valuable.
We've got to use discernment in anything we read, in anything that we look at. We're supposed to be using discernment in it, even in this conversation, guys. Don't take our word as the word of God. Use your own discernment.
In the first couple of chapters, it describes that humans have gone through many stages of thinking that some things that we thought were culturally valuable or godly even, we later decided are not. There's a lot of slavery in the Bible and not a lot of admonition against it, but there is a lot of admonition for love, and that undercuts any idea that slavery might be a good idea.
So, Dave, did we hit on your aspect of wanting to know what sexual healing was? Do we need to go into that more for you? Would you like us to expand into it in more depth?
Well, I didn't even. I must have cut out when I didn't even hear that question.
He just asked another one that says, "What should someone seeking sexual liberation do to awaken that?"
Stop objectifying people. Seek real, meaningful connection. And I'm not suggesting, some kind of culturally defined and socially acceptable connection, but just genuine connection. Genuinely looking at a person and asking them how they feel.
Oh.
And there he went. He'll be back.
Yep.
But on that, I think another aspect of it is, like I said, getting into that energy exchange. It is, you got to ask that person, like what he was saying, how they feel and stuff. And getting that deep connection, um, it's that exchange of energy and the way that it comes together and stuff with the sexual healing, with the way the energies work together, and they can be very healing. They can be very liberating. And Demian's back, so let's continue on your point. What you were saying?
Show people some respect.
Amen.
Show people that you trust them and that they can trust you. And if you can't trust somebody, you might be in the wrong relationship. Or you just might not be ready for a relationship. There's nothing wrong with that.
See, what I find helpful for my personal sexual liberation is being poly and pansexual, but that's just me.
And you know, I'm poly and I'm bisexual, and it's the way I see things. I'm probably closer to pan than anything, but
sexual liberation is not going to be found in cultural and social norms.
No.
It's going to be found in honest, real connections and relationships with people.
And an aspect of that sexual connection is that deep emotional connection. It's not just about getting naked and you know, putting parts together. Anyone can do that. I mean, that's not hard to do. What's hard to do is to get into that deep connection with one another, and that's, in my opinion, where true sexual liberation comes from.
It is actually going to require that you let go of social and cultural norms. These are the things that have messed you up, is trying to adhere to a sick society's version of health.
The way society is today, you know, the way that they perceive sex and they show sex and they show, you know, what is quote unquote sexy.
Everything is hypersexualized and it's commodified. It's made commercial.
Sex sells.
Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not a prude. Furthest thing from it. I swear, I'm not a prude. I think there should be, as much nudity is displayed in culture. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with nudity, and there's nothing wrong with sexuality. What there is wrong is an objectification of it, and a commercialization and commodification of it. Which what happens when we do that is we put dollar signs on it. We put numerical values on the beauty of being human. We put dollar amounts on the mystery of being human, because sex sells. So instead of shaming people more and saying, put some clothes on, hide those bodies. Instead of doing that, how about we stop objectifying each other? How about we stop saying that men are only valuable if they have big rippling muscles and rock hard abs and are 6'2", and we stop saying that women are only valuable if they're young and pretty, and have lustrous hair and heaving bosoms. What if we stop doing that?
Hey, I will say right now, I am a sexy beast, and I'm 6'7" with the body of a god. It just happens to be Buddha. Demian poofed at that. I know he's laughing. If he heard that, I know he's laughing. Come on, you can rub my belly for luck. There he is. Did you hear my last comment before you went away?
No, I heard. Body of the god that happens to be Buddha.
Yeah.
I'm rolling, dude.
I figured as much.
But can we stop the body objectification? Can we stop the body shaming? Can we stop the slut shaming? Can we just stop? Let he who is without sin cast the first stone.
Exactly.
I love that. What is that line? And it's it's not biblical, being said this way, but it's certainly a paraphrasing. It's just, stop judging people just because you sin differently than they do.
I just want to say something real quick to chat. Latest Gaming, you are absolutely sexy. You're very beautiful. Very beautiful. Latest Gaming Review says I'm a sexy beast too. With a Yoshi emote after it.
Yoshi, what a beast.
Hell yeah. Continue on.
But there are so many things that we have to heal from, and almost all of them are identity issues that are made worse by our cultural identification.
Can you just say that again? Because people really need to understand what you just said. Because that is...
Okay, if I could just repeat this sentence, there's so many things that we need to heal from, and they're mostly identity issues, and they're made much, much worse by our cultural identification. We're trying to fit in culturally, and if we did, we would be no closer to God. Now, just because we don't doesn't necessarily mean that we're closer to God either, but at least we're not tying ourselves down to an identification that guarantees that we're facing the wrong way. There are so many people who think, if people just performed their social roles, then everything would be right. We'd be closer to God. And that is exactly what Jesus taught against.
Right.
Because the Sanhedrin was obsessed with the Mosaic law. They were obsessed with maintaining social order. And they lived that way for 1,000 years.
Hi, Tally. Sorry, just Italia came into the chat.
And the story of Yeshua just comes in to say, okay, listen, guys, you've plateaued. Your way of doing things is only going to take you so far, and it's not taking you any further. It's not taking you closer to God. And in fact, you're actively preventing people from entering the kingdom because you don't know how to do it yourselves. If you knew how, you would have already done it.
Yeah, and
you would already be treating people like you were looking into a mirror. You would already be treating people like you love them.
And they would absolutely shut up about the judgment of the way other people are. They would just love them no matter what.
You wouldn't even bring it up.
Right. Talia, we are talking with Demian Gover about the game of life. We also have GGPuck in chat with us.
Hello.
And right now we have been talking about, we've kind of gotten onto the topic of sex and gender identity and gender roles and how culture says that we need to adhere to one or the other. And yeah.
And it showed that gender, sex, sexuality, it shows up a lot in the game of life. But okay, so let's get back to the whole point of how is this a game? Let's get back to that a little bit. So why do we play games, guys? Because they're fun. Life is supposed to be fun. And the only reason that it's not is when we don't know how to play the game. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, every time I saw a game that I thought was going to be fun, when I first tried to learn it, I cried because I wasn't any good at it. I didn't understand the rules. I didn't have any experience playing. Everybody else seemed like they'd been doing this longer, and they knew the rules better, and so they were the ones winning.
Talia wants to know if we are talking about the book, The Game.
No.
Just that's not one I've read. I didn't know if you have or not. I know you're very
No.
well versed in your reading.
But we are talking about the Game of Life, very similar to, in the sense of the book by Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It. Not specifically talking about that book, but that is what it's all about. Being human, being a person, living a human life.
And we lost Demian again. Oh, we've been losing him off and on throughout the night. Just for anyone who is not in the Discord and you would like to change, or you'd like to, there is the links to the Discord. And Demian's back. All right, continue.
And I'm back. I don't know where I left off, but guys, games are supposed to be fun, and this game of being human that we're playing, one way that you can describe it is that God is playing a game of hide and seek with himself, and you're it.
Is this where I bring up Neville Goddard again?
You certainly can.
Where in that teaching that you had me listen to, and I need to listen to some more of his teachings because they're amazing, they're really great. But he talks about how we are God
in the most real sense imaginable.
Right. He didn't pull any punches with his teachings in it.
Not even a little. And neither did Yeshua.
Right.
Yeshua said, as a man, I can't do anything, but through my Father in heaven, anything good and healthy is possible.
And
he wasn't saying that I, this man called Yeshua, or Jesus, if in English, he wasn't saying that, I, Yeshua, am God. He's saying I, Yeshua, and my Father, the God in heaven, are one. But he even says, but my Father is greater than I.
Right.
So these things are happening at the same time.
Well, and then
heaven and earth are happening at the same time.
And Neville Goddard went on to say about where he said, and you will go on to do even greater works than me.
Even greater works than me. Even greater miracles than I do, you will do.
And that's because of God in you, and that you are God. Like I said, I brought it up earlier, where it says that we were created in His image.
And this is why Jesus got. If you notice, Jesus in Scripture never gets mad or at anything. The only time he ever gets bent out of shape about anything ever is when he's pointing out to religious leaders, people who should have known better, that they were teaching God wrong.
Right. Cantheus, Dave, has asked, what role does the resurrection play in the game?
The resurrection is your awakening, your awareness of your own divinity. The 3 days represents the death of Christ, the burial of Christ, and the resurrection of Christ. Why did Jesus say, I will tear down this temple and in 3 days I will rebuild it? Because that's what's going to happen. And where did this take place? On Golgotha.
No, we lost him. He'll be back in just a second. I don't want to touch on anything else till he comes back with that, really. I want to hear where he's going with the talk about Golgotha. Yes, the skull. I really want to hear what he's going to say about Golgotha. All right, welcome back. And you cut
sorry.
out right when you said this takes place on Golgotha.
Golgotha. What does Golgotha mean? Golgotha means skull. All of this is taking place in your own mind. And we're symbolizing skull, we're symbolizing the brain. This isn't taking place in your nervous system. This is taking place in mind, which is apart from the physical body. But the 3 days that Jesus says will take for me to tear down this body and rebuild it in 3 days, the three things that are happening symbolically are the death of Christ. You're playing a game that you don't know who you are. And then there's the burial of Christ. We're going to hide Christ in your own mind.
Oh,
and then
I just got Tanner to jump up on me.
and then you are going to resurrect Christ. You are going to become aware that God is your own awareness of consciousness. That's why the resurrection is so important. Now, that's just a description of it in Christian symbolism. But Jesus is not saying that you have to say my name enough times during the day and God will smile down on you. That's empty. That means nothing. God doesn't care what language you use. God doesn't care what language you speak. God cares how you treat people.
Right.
Because they are a reflection of yourself. And when you're playing the game of God hiding from himself, hidden within the mind of man, you don't know that. You see people as separate from yourself. So you see people as good and bad, as right and wrong, as some people bringing you pleasure, other people bringing you pain. Sometimes the same people bringing you pleasure and pain in different moments. It's all very confusing. This is a confusing game to play. And you don't, because one, you don't know what the rules are, and two, you don't know what the point is. What is the point of playing this game of life? What's the point of playing this game of being human? So if we could maybe sum that up. Am I on?
Yeah, you still here?
This thing work?
It's
hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm
we hear you loud and clear.
But if you could describe what the point is, maybe it has something to do with this. Maybe it has something to do with we have to pretend to have an experience of what we're not in order to wake up and recognize and appreciate what we truly are. And how would we do that? We bury God within our own mind. We kill him, and we bury him, and then we resurrect him. That's what we're doing.
Well, the way I see it is we're also killing the ego, we're burying it, and we're being reborn anew.
When God is buried, that's when the ego rears its ugly head. And when you bury God within your own mind, that's when the sense of separation is made possible. And where does this show up? This shows up really early on in Judeo-Christian scriptures. Shows up in the original myth of Adam and Eve as the serpent. The serpent represents the ego. The serpent represents the sense of separation that is whispering to you, things are a threat. And because the serpent is more subtle than the other beasts in the field, right? Because the ego is something you can't see.
Right.
You can't see it. So your sense of separation makes you think that, these other things in my world, they're separate from me. You don't see it as an image of yourself. You don't see it as a mirror reflection of your own subconscious. you don't see the world as a reflection of your own mind. You see it as separate from yourself, which means that it's a threat. And here's the thing. If you see other things in your experience as separate from you, the implication is that you're separate from God.
Right. And you know, as we're talking about ego and stuff, and we talk about ego death, which ego death would be the resurrection, correct? That's when we put ego down.
And ego death, we've talked about this before. Ego death is a bit of a misnomer, because in our culture, when we hear the word death, we think this is over, it's final, it's done, it's
Right.
not coming back.
Right.
But ego death is what, in reference to a temporary experience during deep meditation, or even working with entheogenic sacraments like ayahuasca. And it's a temporary experience where everything about your sense of self just vanishes. It's gone. It's not being challenged. No, there are ego challenges, that are very uncomfortable, very painful challenges to your sense of self and your sense of identity. That's not quite ego death, because ego death is an experience of complete and total bliss, and the experience of being and sitting in blinding white energy of love.
Well,
And that's all you know.
when I think about it, it's at least to me and my perspectives, and that's the only way that I can really perceive things is from my perspective. I can sit and listen and open myself to looking at other perspectives and stuff, but from my personal experience in working with the entheogenic sacraments and stuff, mainly Aya, the aspect of going through the ego death, the death of the individual self, identifying as Big Hempy, or my real name's Joshua. I don't care to tell you guys, but to identify myself as Joshua, when I hit that ego death point, I'm no longer Joshua. I am one with the universal collective consciousness. It comes into that oneness with everything, not just hey, I'm having I've put down what we think of a lot of the egotistical things like pride and stuff along those matters. Those are
Yeah,
gone
that's
at that point in
nice.
time.
That's nice to set those things down. But yeah, there's something beyond that.
It's that collection to that connection of oneness with everything, that we are all intertwined, that we are all one being, that we're all in this together, and that
In the most real and intimate way possible.
oh yeah, it's I gotta say, it's been one of the most mind-blowing experiences that I've ever had. And to feel that is to feel nothing but absolute love. It is,
It's bliss
yeah,
and love.
yeah.
It's the true nature of reality.
And you don't have to use the entheogenic sacraments to get there, but it's a way of getting there.
It's a way of getting there, and I'm sure that many of the writings we have of Buddhist Satori, and Kundalini awakening, I'm sure that many of these are done without them.
Oh yeah,
They're done through other practices,
done
like
through
fasting and
deep meditation, fasting,
However,
breathing techniques.
sometimes people experience these. First of all, sometimes people experience these things randomly
Oh yeah,
through fever dreams. One of my favorite Catholic saints, Julian of Norwich, fever dreams led her to this to the realization that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Oh, again, a woman. and uh, through starvation, wandering in the desert, being stung by scorpions, and near-death experiences sometimes occasion these experiences. But that being said, some people have said, oh, it should be discipline that allows this awakening. And I'm like, well, what about the people who've had fever dreams and near-death experiences?
Right.
Oh, well, those were, God intended for those to happen. Well, so what, you can't occasion those experiences intentionally with the plans that
God gave us?
Oh, no.
He'll be right back. He'll be right back. I know he will. I know his next words are going to be with the plants that God gave us. This is a conversation me and Demian have had personally one-on-one a lot. Hey, welcome back.
Where did I cut off?
Right when you said with the plants that God, and I continued it out with that God gave us.
Right, exactly. And so I just think that when people make the suggestion that entheogenic plants are somehow a shortcut to spirituality, I think that's like saying food is a shortcut to nutrition.
Hey, can I stop right there and say something? I wanna touch on that. The use of entheogenic plants it's not a shortcut. At least in my opinion, in no way, shape, or manner. To take that step to use these entheogenic plants is a really big step. Aubrey Marcus has a really good video that he talks about the psychedelic experience, and I think I've shared it with you before, Demian. I'm not 100% sure. If not, I will definitely share it. It's on YouTube. I've got a link to it. I'll post.
It's probably something to revisit, because I want to keep up with a little bit with what other people's perspectives are.
But Aubrey talks about, he goes into the whole aspects about holotropic breathing and, doing things in a deprivation tank and fasting
Sure.
and going into a cave and meditating and stuff. But he says, to obtain these things, to obtain this spiritual enlightenment, to obtain this aspect, this deep aspect, by going through those things, he says it's like setting your house on fire to bake a loaf of bread. And we have been given these plants that are able to take us there really quick.
Wait, are you suggesting that if I was to go sit on the top of a mountain for 9 years, I'd have to give up everything else about my life?
Hey, I mean, if you want to go sit up there,
I guess that is right.
If you want to walk away from your wife and your children and your family and your work and your ministry to go sit up on a mountain for 9 years, by all means, if that's what you feel called to do.
What if I could do it in 9 hours?
Oh, exactly.
And I don't mean to suggest, and I understand that may sound a little flip, but I want to be real with people. You've read a lot of other people's experiences, and I want people to be able to talk about their own.
Well, I want to touch on a little bit of what Aubrey said. He quotes Terrence McKenna in it, and he says, and using psychedelics takes courage, because it's not going to work in 9 years. It's not going to work in 9 months. It's going to work in the next hour. These things are going to hit you. These entheogenic plants that we talk about, and
you're going to have to find a way to deal with that.
Right, and it's going to take you to places that you're not really sure where it's going to take you each time. I can sit down and I can set my setting and my intentions and stuff. But when I sit there and I drink that bitter tea down, I drink that bitter brew, and that hits my system, when that kicks in, I'm at the mercy of spirit. I'm at the mercy of that entheogenic plant, where it's going to take me and what it's going to teach me and what it's going to show me.
Yeah. And the smartest and wisest thing to do would be to surrender to it.
You have to. You have to. And then you hear people talking about having dark trips or bad trips. What they don't understand is that's not true. That's not what's going on. What you're dealing with is what's referred to as shadow work.
Yeah. You're dealing with your own depression and your own fear.
Right. You're dealing with
the darkness. It's a necessary part of it.
I think shadow work may be the most important part of it, in all honesty. I think getting down and dirty with that darker aspect of yourself and coming to terms with it is one of the hardest, yet one of the most important things that we do when we work with these inthanogenic plants.
You mentioned before we got on the before we started the show that you might want to talk about the dark night of the soul.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That I mean, the Dark Night of the Soul is something that I really like to get into and discuss, and that's shadow work right there as well. Um, and that's really coming to terms with when you get into the Dark Night of the Souls, when you hit that point of that deep despair, that darkness and everything, and you're just sitting there going, where is the light? Where
Yeah.
is it? I've got to find the light. And
Can we
and the
can we
secret
have
is
that be the last thing we talk about
we
tonight?
can. The secret is
Okay.
the light is
Well,
you.
yeah, when you walk into the dark corner of the room and it's suddenly illuminating and you're looking around and you're like, okay, okay, there it is. Someone brought the light in with me. Where's it coming from? And
You
you
are
realize
the light.
that's you. No one brought that in with you. No one had mercy on you and came and saved you. You brought that in with you. And you didn't bring darkness with you. That was an illusion. And you brought the light in with you and dispelled it. And that should start to wake you up to some truths about what you truly are.
Oh yeah. I want to ask chat right now. Do any of you guys have any questions about the Dark Night of the Soul, about shadow work? Because right now is the time to ask.
Yeah, and there's some stuff that I want to talk about as the last thing we speak of this evening. Um, First of all, I want to talk about the dark void. And this is something that I've encountered. This is something that other people have told me they've encountered, especially both in their and this isn't something that goes on in their daily lives. This is something that goes on in an inner experience through meditation or um, or through working with entheogenic sacraments like ayahuasca.
I've had it. I've been there.
And I call it the dark void because there's nothing there. And people have asked, well, why does that happen? Why would that happen? Well, here's the thing. We've heard about things that suggest something like oneness or something like ego death. And from a human point of view, we have not yet experienced that. We haven't yet experienced oneness. We haven't experienced ego death. So our minds are kind of wondering, okay, what would it be like not to identify with anything? And one of the places that it could potentially take us to is something terrifying. And I've even had some people tell me, that they worked with other people elsewhere, and they said, "Oh, I had this experience of ego death, and it was horrifying. It was black and empty, and nothing was there, and I had no ego." And I'm like, take a deep breath, back up. No, wait a minute. So you're saying that you were aware that nothing was there? Yes, I was very aware. I was okay. First of all, if you're aware of emptiness, and it's terrifying to you, if your ego is as strong as it ever was, that's not
Right.
ego death. That is a very hyper inflated ego. Oh, but I had no identity. No, you were identifying with emptiness. You were identifying with darkness. And you're wondering, okay, what would it be like not to identify with?
Oh no.
Oh, he'll be right back. Because I really want to touch on something that he's saying too. And like I said, chat, if any of you have any questions on what we're talking about, please post them up there. We will get them into Demian. We'll respond to them. We'll reply to them. But please put them in there. But I'm really excited where he's going with this thread right now because I'll give my response into it once Demian's finished. All right, welcome back, Demian.
Thanks. Don't know where I cut off.
You cut off talking about the that the ego is strongest at that point in time where you're at when you're identifying as the void as being, it's scary, it's nothing, but that's where the ego is strongest. They're
Right.
thinking that there's no ego, but that's where it's the strongest.
That's where it's the strongest. And so what's going on is that you're feeling like you don't have a body. You don't have any feet. There's no ground. There's nothing to put a foothold on. And so, and what is going on is that nothing is there, but you're having this really strong feeling like there's supposed to be. But there's not.
That's one of my favorite parts to get to when I'm working with the sacraments. I love hitting that point when I'm working with the sacraments.
If you're prepared for it, you realize, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of.
I love to stare into the void because it's within the void that I see the light.
And there's peace there.
Oh,
there's calm
so
there.
Beautiful.
But if you have this feeling that you're just floating in an empty blackness and you miss aspects of solidity, you miss aspects of, this is where you're like, oh, I wish there was pain here because that would be something. I wish there was suffering here because at least that would be meaningful, because here there's nothing. And if you experience that and you're unprepared for it, it's disturbing. But there's no threat.
It's funny that we're talking about this and stuff, and I actually had my first experiences with this back around 1995 when I was graduating from high school, and I was into martial arts. I was into a lot of deep meditation, and I had some experiences with this, and I wrote a lot of poetry and stuff at the time, and I wanted to put out a book of poetry, and my name for the book, and I still may publish this at some point in time, was The Dark Side of Light.
Yeah.
And it to me, what that was the very point of light where the darkness starts to creep in and the light starts to fade. And it's in that very, very gray area right on the edge of the void. And I identified as the dark side of light.
I create light and the darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. This is biblical. This is scriptural.
It's the yin and the yang.
And it all comes from one single place. There is no good God that only brings pleasant things and some devil that brings the bad and ugly and violent things. That is a false theology. Everything comes from one single place, and that one single thing gets kind of jealous when you try to attribute power to something else, like a devil.
Right.
The devil is your own ego. It's the illusionary sense of separation.
I mean,
it's an illusion.
Honestly, the yin yang symbol symbolizes and wraps it all up perfectly, because you've got the white merged with the black, but you got the black within the white and the white within the black. They're all intertwined. There's no separating one from the other.
They're all happening at the same time.
Right.
Some people get confused, but because, Jesus says, my Father is greater than I. And they're like, well, which is it? Is Jesus God or not? Well, if you were to, and sometimes I've had to explain to people.
Oh, no.
Quick, let's guess what he was going to say next.
People. That was the word he was working on. As many technical issues as we've had tonight, I have absolutely loved the show tonight.
See, I was gonna say, talking about there being like darkness and whatever is, I mean, it's not entirely related to what was being said, but it makes me think of, so people say that they're afraid of the dark, right? But they're not really afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what is in the dark, what could be in the dark.
Right.
Like,
People have a fear that the dark contains these evil things, these hidden things, these things that's going to come out and get you, these boogeymen, these little spooks that are going to come out of the darkness and do bad things to you. It's not, like you said, it's not the dark they fear, it's what's in the dark.
Okay, and where did I cut off?
You was talking, I'm not really sure because me and Puck got onto a tangent.
Some people get confused because I described to them that, like Jesus says, I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I.
Right.
So I say that spirit comes first, and then solidity, material, comes from the expression of that. And they're like, but I thought time doesn't mean anything to spirit. And I'm like, no, they're happening technically at the same time. But if you were to write down a mathematical equation of it, heaven would come first. Heaven equals earth. You wouldn't write the equation as earth equals heaven. Because, as scripture says, on earth as it is in heaven. You wouldn't say in heaven as it is on earth.
Did we ever touch on the aspect of heaven being within?
We certainly should. Well, I mean, that was the first thing that we started talking about is, how do you define heaven? Is it culturally defined, or does it come from within, as this is the immediate and obvious solution to all problems? So much so that it's perfect. You wouldn't recognize that there were any problems.
Right.
And so why should there be problems? So you can play the game of figuring things out. Eventually, it's supposed to be fun. The game...
oh no.
He's still here. Maybe.
No.
I see that he's still connected. I think he just lost signal strength.
Jesus knew what the point.
Oh, there you are. You cut out for a little bit there,
Sorry.
Demian.
Sorry.
It didn't fully disconnect you. It just you cut out on our end. I could still see you up in the chat, but we couldn't hear you.
The game of life is supposed to be fun. But it's a lot more fun when you know the rules.
Right.
It's a lot more fun when you know the point. And Jesus knew the point. He knew what his identity was. He identified with the Father in heaven, and what he was doing was going about his Father's business. And I think Neil Donald Walsh puts it really well. He probably does this in other places, but I remember it clearly in the last book that I read of his, in book 4 of Conversations with God. God says it's a whole lot easier to wake yourself up when you're waking someone else up. You will wake up more quickly when you help someone else wake up.
It makes sense.
We were talking about the dark night of the soul, and I started getting into that, talking about the dark void, because I've talked to people who have experienced that dark void, and they got really super depressed for a long time from it. The dark night of the soul is not a night, guys. It is rarely one single night. It can go on for days, weeks, months. Sometimes people experience the dark night of the soul for years.
And it's something that occasionally you'll go back and revisit at times too. It's not just a one-time occurrence. You can go back into it.
Yeah, because if you don't figure out a lesson, you will revisit that lesson until you figure it out, until the lesson becomes clear and meaningful to you. And it's, the dark night of the soul is not just depression, it's an existential crisis. where you don't know what to identify with because your human identity you see it as so meaningless.
Right, and you haven't yet gained that cosmic identity that you're looking for.
And you can identify with your human self, because even though the ego is an illusion, the sense of separation.
Oh, no. The sense of separation took Demian away from Discord. Just patiently waiting for him to come back. He'll return. He will not let this conversation stop right there. And guys, just so you know, here, Demian's back.
And this is the reason we use the symbolism of father and son, because remember, symbolically, the female mind gives birth to ideas and the male mind makes the decisions. This is symbolic. And so the father in heaven makes the decisions. The son is heir to the decisions of the father. And the son isn't a human person. It's certainly not a human male. The son is the manifestation of the material world. Son, S-O-N.
Right.
Because this is the symbolism that we're using as parentage. So when you're a parent and you have a kid, you're looking at your kid and it has a different personality than you do. But genetically, it's made of the same stuff as you are. So here we are as humans, and we have a different personality from each other. We might not have the personality of God, but we have inherited 100% of all the genetic makeup of God. And different than the other beasts in the field, we have the ability to know it. And this is why Genesis says that man was created in God's image. Not man males, but man humans.
As in mankind and
As
all.
in mankind, meaning all humans, male and female. And of every religion, of every creed, of every geographical location, of every religion, that doesn't matter.
Right,
None of those things matter.
Right, it's stripped down to just human beings.
And all of which have inherited the Heavenly Father's image, which means conscious awareness. And you have the ability as a human to be aware of your own divinity. You also have the ability not to be aware. It's like, I can be dealt a poker hand and I have the ability to draw a royal flush. I also have the ability to be dealt a handful of garbage. And free will is free not in terms of what hand you're dealt, but it is free in the sense of you get to decide how you play your hand.
Right.
And you don't get to decide that everything is going to be pleasant all the time. But you do get to decide that you're going to pay attention to how the game works, and you're always going to have fun playing the game. I used to study the time frame that it took to change bad habits, and one guy said it was 21 days. More recently they've decided that it's an average of 67 days, and then very recently I've read where scientists have now decided that to replace a bad habit with something healthy, it takes an average of 400 repetitions of a new behavior. But If it's done in the spirit of play, it takes 10 to 20.
Wow.
That is God's way of saying you're supposed to have fun with this. You are supposed to play the game of life. You're supposed to do it in a spirit of joy, even if some days are not as good as others. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a bad week. You know, there's gonna be ups and downs. In the game of life, the long-term trajectory is always going to be uphill. And I don't mean uphill in the sense of Sisyphus pushing the rock, but it's going to be ever increasing, ever expanding, ever greater and greater knowledge and understanding and wisdom. But from day to day, from minute to minute, going to have ups and downs. So if you zero in closer and look, with a kind of a myopic, short-sighted view, take a snapshot of any given day, it's going to have ups and downs more like a stock chart.
Oh yeah, I mean, like honestly, I can just give him my own personal experience. Like right now, I'm up and down daily. I'm dealing with some pain issues. I'm dealing with some health issues right now that's looking at me having to have potential surgery. Actually, not a potential. I'm going to have surgery to repair this.
It's scheduled, right?
I'm waiting to get scheduled with the surgeon right now, but it's in the process. It's in that process. The wheels within the medical system are already rolling on all this stuff.
Right.
But and I could be down about that. But I know this is something I've got to do. I've got to get it addressed. Some days, like yesterday, I was in excruciating pain. The last time we'd done this, I was having a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Tonight, luckily, the pain's not that bad. I've been able to sit here through tonight. I've had a highly enjoyable time. I've had a lot of fun with this show tonight. I've mentioned it a couple times when you've been off the air and stuff that this has just been a great night. It's been so much fun.
Well, I'm really glad. I've had a lot of fun too.
And it's one of those things that, yes, I'm gonna have my ups, I'm gonna have my downs, and like yesterday, I was in such bad pain I couldn't get up and do things around the house that I wanted to do, and that kind of drove me into a bit of a depression. And I was laying in bed and I was really focusing on some of the past things that I've been through that were, sad times and sorrow times. Some of the relationships that I've been in and stuff, like with my marriage and stuff. I'm divorced now, so obviously things didn't work out the way I thought they would.
Right. Nobody ever gets married thinking they're gonna get divorced.
Right. And then at the same time, this morning, a really good friend of mine from school who I've reconnected with that lives, she lives in Alabama, I'm in Ohio. She's going to be coming in to visit soon. She messaged me today. She asked how I was doing and stuff. I told her, I'd been kind of down and sad, and she starts talking with me, and all of a sudden, I'm beaming. I'm happy. I'm reconnecting with this person who means a lot to me and stuff, and we have a really deep connection. We've actually dove into a deeper connection than what we've had in the past and stuff, and she's actually going to be coming in here in a couple weeks to visit some family and stuff, and she's actually going to be staying here with me during that time frame, and I'm just absolutely looking forward to reconnecting with her and dealing with some of the stuff that we've both been dealing with, and we're both looking forward to that time that we get. But she's also made the comment, it's going to probably be really hard for her when it comes time for her to leave and go back home.
Yeah. But that's what it's like to make connections with people. There's happy things and sad things, and some things are glorious, and some things are miserable, and that's what makes it meaningful.
Right. And part of it is, I think a lot of people look at stuff and they don't understand this. One of the things that I really realized early on is people come into your life for a time. Sometimes it's forever, sometimes it's a short period of time. But what that time is they're there to show you something. They're there to teach you something. Even these bad relationships, even the breakups and the heartaches and everything, there's something to be learned from them.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're willing to learn.
like with my ex-wife, I learned what I don't want out of a relationship with the way that one went. You know,
Yeah.
I there was good times, yes, but there were some really bad times too, and that's what really drove us apart was we had a difference of the way we saw things. We had a difference of the way that we looked at life and stuff, and the way that we approached things. And I found out the way that she goes at things and the way I go at things is just not compatible. It's like oil and water.
And it doesn't mean that anybody's a bad person. It just means that you have to move on.
Yeah, but
You
I
have to move on to the next lesson and the next connection.
but I learned a lot about I learned a lot about myself from that when I was willing to stop and take the time to reflect on it and not judge.
You know, that's a relatively easy thing to do when you're talking about certain human situations. When things get when things get really bad, it's much more difficult to see, and that's where people will pass around the books that talk. Oh, here's this monk who's been meditating for 50 years, and he says there's beauty in suffering, and oh, isn't that so wonderful, and isn't that so uplifting, and isn't that so reassuring? But the average person, if they suggest that, again, that's where you get, that how dare you,
Right.
suggest these horrifying things that I've been through, that there's beauty in that. Fuck you. That's where we immediately get offended. And I just want to assure people that's we're not saying that these horrible things that you've been through weren't horrible. We're not saying that they weren't painful. And
Mm.
Oh, what a horrible time to lose him.
Mm. This is what pain feels like.
He will return shortly. And just a heads up for everyone who didn't catch this whole show, I will be posting this up. The VOD will go up on Twitch right after, of course, shortly after. And then I will be, after the 24-hour time frame, I will be posting this up. Hey, Lasco, how you doing, buddy? I will be posting this up on YouTube as well, so I will post that link over on the Discord. I'll also share it around on my Facebook pages and stuff too, so you guys will be able to access this if you did not catch the whole show and you want to catch up on it and everything. But hopefully Demian will be back here in just a second so he can continue on what he was talking. Hey, Demian, welcome back.
lost you again.
It happens. It was
Where
funny
was I?
because as soon as you poofed, Puck was like, and this is what pain feels like.
And we're not suggesting that the horrible things that you've been through weren't painful. We're not saying that. We're just saying don't throw away your future by obsessing about the misery of the past.
Right.
You're giving power to things that should have none. And we know it's painful. We know it's hurtful. We've been there.
I
But
I can say that when the the final moments of my marriage was me walking up to my wife, and I knew we was struggling, we was having issues, and I asked her, I said, what can I do to fix us? I was wanting to know, what can I do? What is there that I need to do within myself, within this relationship? What can I do? And she looked at me and said, in my opinion, there's no more us. And that broke me right there. That my heart broke. I was devastated when she said that.
yeah, yeah.
But without that heartache, I wouldn't be able to truly, truly, truly enjoy the depths of what love truly is. And it's a beautiful thing. In that pain, in that suffering, in that hurt is where you learn a lot of what it's like to really enjoy the highs in life.
How else would you know? What if everything was just pleasant? What if everything was just easy and fun all the time?
Right. We're coming back to the same point we was at earlier in the
Always.
conversation and stuff. You know, the circle has closed.
This is what it's like to play the game. This is what it's like to play the game of life. And I'll see. I look to appreciate the little things, and I'll tell you a little secret. When you opened the show, and you said hello, and I was just like, you sound like Julia Child. I've held on to that this entire time, and
Oh,
Oh, hold on. We gotta get him back. I've got to hear this. I did kind of start off like Julia Child with it too. I'm like, hello.
it made it that much more fun for me. Just wanted to let you know that.
Oh yeah. I got different intros that I'll do. Some of them. Sometimes I'll go more along those lines. Sometimes I'll do almost like like the ringmaster at a ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Get ready to rumble. Oh, you were going for a 3-ring circus ringmaster. Yes.
Well, hey, I mean it's all a ringmaster, no matter which way you want to take it. You know, we can do. Oh man, what is it? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah. 3-ring circus, not 3 rings. Boxing ring, not a ring. Yeah, we were lied to most of our childhood.
We've been playing different games all along.
Yes, and many of them are absurd. So stop taking everything so seriously. Stop taking everything so personally. Life is about you, but it's not against you.
And by God, learn to laugh at yourself every once in a while, because you're gonna do some stupid shit.
For real. I can't think of any other way, any better way to end than let's learn to laugh. Next time we've got to talk about maybe the stepping off, from okay, well, after you've healed, then what?
Right.
Once you no longer need the crutch, carrying the crutch around is going to get in your way. So next time maybe we'll talk about what it's like to hand hope off to faith.
Oh yeah. Demian, if you want to hang around in the chat channel, if you've got a little bit of time, feel free to hang around. But I think we're pretty much coming to a close, aren't we?
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure again, as always.
Man,
thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, you are welcome here anytime, no matter what. I absolutely love any times that I can sit down and talk to you, and when I can do it with and share these chats with other people, because there's a lot of times you and me will just get on the phone, and we've done it in the past, and we'll sit and we'll talk for 2, 3, 4 hours about these same subjects and stuff and dive into them. But man, I really enjoy being able to open this up with other people and open this dialogue with others as well. And that's
well, as a minister and as a teacher, I'm thinking, all the time, that I want to share stuff with people. You as a broadcaster, you think, other people should be hearing this. So yeah, this is it's a wonderful opportunity.
Well, can we tell everyone a little secret? Is I'm working on the same process of becoming a minister and a teacher as well.
Yeah, and when you figure out stuff about yourself, it feels like an obligation that you want to share what you've experienced with others.
Right. And you know, I want to I want to thank you for giving us your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, your just sharing what you have with each and every one of us and stuff. It means a lot to me personally, and I know many others have enjoyed these conversations and stuff, and we have many more to come, many more to
I
come.
look forward to it very
And
much.
you know, one of the things I said that we need to dive into real soon, and you know, you said you want to talk about the stepping off point of what it looks like after you've hit the healing point and stuff, which I think that would be great. I really love to get into that, but I also really want to dive into the universal laws. We started to do that back on the Blog Talk radio shows. Um, this is kind of a breaking reality 2.0 where we're starting over fresh on a lot of these things. So I
Yeah.
really want to dive into that conversation too, because I think the
No, I
universal
would.
laws are some really great teachings and really good foundation blocks for people who are really wanting to dive deeper into. um, it's the path of the mystic that we're on.
Yes, yes, and I would love that. I would love to talk about the universal laws, because these are when we talk about laws, we're talking about ways that we can put those in human terms. We're really talking about one law, that and it is mathematical and perfect. But as humans, there's a good handful of ways that we can express it in ways that it shows up in our lives. And I'd love to sit down on a broadcast and talk about that.
Well, hang out if you can for a few minutes afterwards, and let's work out some details on when we're going to do the next show and everything. And
Very good. You want me to just hang on to this link,
yeah,
or you want? Okay,
Yeah,
very
just
good.
just stay right in this chat and stuff. We
All right.
once I end the stream here in just a few minutes. I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight. Puck, you're more than free to hang out with the chat too as well. I actually might pull us down to one of the public chats if anyone wants to jump in there and continue to talk with us after this for a little bit and just kind of BS a little. I'll be around. But big thanks to everyone who came out tonight. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the bits, the follows, everything. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for just coming and sharing your time with us tonight. Thank you, Demian, once again for being here, being our guest, and sharing with us. You're, like I said, you're always welcome here. Even when I'm doing shows with other people, you are more than welcome to come in and co-host with me at any point in time, because I knew you're going to see things from a perspective that I don't, and you're going to bring a different aspect to it than I do, and I love that.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's always my pleasure.
And Puck, I want to thank you for being here and moderating for me tonight, and your comments and your questions and stuff in this. You really helped bring a different aspect to us, and you're always welcome in on these shows.
Thank you.
So, all right, everybody, I want to go ahead and say goodnight, have fun, and follow me on the Discord, and I will keep you guys up to date when we are going to be doing the next show and what is going on. That is honestly the best way to stay in contact with me. I think I got my Facebook link up there. Hold on. It might actually be Facebook. I'm horrible at typing right now. I should have these on my stream deck. There we go. And you can follow me on Facebook if you want. I also post everything up there that we're going to be doing as far as with the shows too. So everybody, thank you once again and have a good night.